Good afternoon again, family. Thank you, dear Barb. So I'll be sharing a devotional today, another Israel devotional from our trip to Israel in June this summer. So I'll be covering our when we visited Magdala. This was on day 2 of our trip. So I can show the first slide or the first picture, just so you know where Magdala is, or where Magdala is located in respect to the Sea of Galilee. So Magdala, also known as modern-day Migdal, the town of Migdal. Magdala is a first-century town located on the northwestern shore of the Sea of Galilee, as you see here on the map. So Jesus spent the majority of his ministry in the Galilee region. It is in Galilee that Jesus established his home base. He called his disciples in Galilee, as well as performed many of the great miracles that we read about in Scripture. If you go on the Magdala website, Magdala is what they believe a crossroads of Jewish and Christian history. Situated on the shores of the Galilee along a major commercial trade route called the Via Maris, and on the way from Nazareth to Capernaum, Magdala was an active city filled with fishermen, shopkeepers, and townspeople. So this site, the archaeological site of Magdala, was uncovered, what they believe providentially, in 2009. Archaeological discoveries indicate the presence of an observant Jewish community in Magdala, as is evidenced in its first century synagogue. And you can show the next picture of the Migdal Synagogue. This is located in the Magdala Archaeological Park. So here in this picture, you can see the replica of the Magdala Stone in the center of this synagogue. Where it is right now, the replica of the stone, this is where they found it. This is where the archaeologists found it. And this stone, this Magdala Stone, is a very, very important finding because they believe it portrays the Temple of Jerusalem. It was probably a week's long trip from Magdala to Jerusalem, so many of the people who used to live here could not make that trip. So this portrayed the temple of the very presence of God and what you would see in the temple, and because of the carvings on it. The synagogue is one of 7 in the world and the best preserved today. In the center of the synagogue, archaeologists found the Magdala Stone, a discovery they have quoted to be, quote, one of the most significant finds in the past 50 years. And you can show the next picture. So this is a replica of the Magdala Stone, another replica. I thought it was the original, but I think it's a replica. I don't know where the original is. But this is us, our tour group, with the Magdala Stone. This is next to the ruins of a large fisherman's wharf and a warehouse. You can see a little bit onto the right there in that corner. That is the ruins of a large fisherman's warehouse and wharf. So I thought that was pretty cool. So it is in Magdala where Jesus likely taught the multitudes and he healed the afflicted, including a woman who made her hometown famous. You know her? Mary Magdalene, Mary of Magdala. So after this, we walked. It was very, very hot. We were all pretty miserable sitting here. But after that, we had to walk in the sun a little bit. And we walked into the Duke in Altum building. So you can show the next picture. Duke in Altum. This is we didn't even see the very front. I had no idea there were letters on the top. We just walked in through the very right side of it. I'm learning a lot more after the fact that I visited this place. But this is the Duke in Altum building. Duke in Altum is Latin and draws its name from Luke 5:4, where Jesus instructs Simon Peter to launch into the deep. That's what Duke in Altum means, or put out into deep water and lower his nets for a catch. This building is composed of 6 chapels, one of which including the main boat chapel, next picture, This is a shot of the main boat chapel, as well as 4 smaller lateral mosaic chapels. Next picture. This is one of the mosaic chapels. You can see Millette standing here. So I believe this is one of the miracles of Jesus when he called Peter to come to him on the Sea of Galilee during a storm, and Peter found himself sinking after he realized he's walking on water and there's waves. So each of these chapels portrayed some of the miracles of Jesus, as well as an atrium dedicated to women and a lower level encounter chapel with a mural. So this building, Duke and Eltham, provides a place for prayer, teaching, and worship for Christians of all backgrounds and denominations. This building is dedicated to the public life of Jesus, his transforming encounters, and as well as honoring the women of the Bible, as well as the women of faith, as well as the women sitting in this room. So you can show the next picture. This is a shot that I took of the women's atrium. It's a beautiful atrium. So right when you walk into the building, this is basically the lobby or whatever, but this is what you see when you walk in. It's just beautiful women's atrium. And you can see along the side, the top of the ceiling, there's a Latin phrase there, and I want to read that phrase to you. This Latin phrase comes from Pope St. John Paul II, which adorns the circumference of the building, highlighting the important role of women in the church and the transmission of faith through women. Remember that Mary Magdalene was the first one who saw Jesus after his resurrection. So this is the Latin sentence surrounding the women's atrium. This is from St. John Paul II. In 1988, he said, "The Church desires to give thanks to the most Holy Trinity for the mystery of woman, and for every woman, for that which constitutes the eternal measure of her feminine dignity, for the great works of God, which throughout human history have been accomplished in and through her." This was just really powerful. So the women's atrium, you can see there's pillars. There's 8 pillars surrounding the atrium, 7 of which have their names carved or embedded into the pillar itself. One of them being Mary Magdalene. You can show the next picture. So this one, you can't really see it, but it says Maria Magdalene, and this is one of the pillars that was there. There are 7 others. 6 others have names, and there's an 8th pillar. This is one of the things that hit me the most personally when I was there. There's an 8th pillar, and there's no name marked on it. This is what's called the Unmarked Pillar. And this pillar honors women of faith across all time, across all space and time. This is a bare column which represents all of the women through all of time who have followed and still follow Jesus today, for women of all time who love God and live by faith. This impacted me very, very personally because, okay, this is a bare column, but my name is on this pillar. My mother's name is on this pillar. Celia's name is on this pillar. Barb, our names, my grandmother's, my sisters in Christ, all our names are on this pillar. Our grandmother's names are on this pillar. And I believe that if all of our names across all time were carved on this pillar, you wouldn't even see the pillar anymore, And so this was that was a powerful moment, one of the powerful moments for me in Magdala. So, and then after this, we went downstairs to the lower level, and you can show the next picture. And as you're walking into the lower level of the encounter chapel, into the encounter chapel, this is the lower level. I saw this painting of Mother Teresa was displayed in front of the chapel. And I just thought I just wanted to show this moving artwork of Mother Teresa praying. Her name would be on this pillar. This was by artist Juan Carlos Lopez Mesa, just to give him the credit. And so passing this artwork, you walk into the Encounter Chapel and you see this mural. And you can see the next picture. So this is the Chapel of Encounter. The Chapel of Encounter. And this is dedicated to Jesus' encounter of all of us, as illustrated by the hemorrhaging woman. And I'm going to read from Mark 5. See that, she touches the hem of Jesus' garment, believing in his power to heal her. And I just want to read, before we close, I just want to read from Mark 5, verses 21 to 34. This is from the Voice translation. After Jesus returned across the sea, that is Galilee, a large crowd quickly followed him, and he stayed by the sea. One of the leaders of the synagogue, a man named Jairus, came and he fell at Jesus' feet, begging him to heal his daughter. Jairus says, "My daughter is dying, and she's only 12 years old. Please come to my house. Just place your hands on her, please. I know that if you do, she will live." Jesus then began traveling with Jairus toward his home, and on the way, he had an encounter. In the crowd pressing around Jesus, there was a woman who had suffered continuous bleeding for 12 years, bleeding that made her ritually unclean. She was an outcast according to the purity laws. She had suffered greatly. And although she spent all her money on her medical care, she had only gotten worse. She had heard of this miracle man, Jesus, so she snuck up behind him in the crowd, reached out to her hand to touch his cloak. And she said to herself, even if all I can do is touch his clothes, I know I will be healed. As soon as her fingers brushed his cloak, the bleeding stopped. She could feel that she was whole again. Lots of people were pressed against Jesus at that moment, but he immediately felt her touch. He felt healing power flow out of him, so he stopped. And when he stopped, everyone stopped, and he looked around. Jesus said, "Who touched my robe?" His disciples, "Jesus, the crowd is so thick, everyone's touching you. What do you mean, who touched me?" But Jesus waited. His gaze swept across the crowd to see who had done it. And at last, the woman, knowing he was talking about her, she pushed forward and dropped to her knees, shaking with fear and amazement. "I touched you." And then she told him the reason why, and Jesus listened to her story. And he said, "Daughter, you are well because you dared to believe. Go in peace and stay well." And we can show the last picture. It was just me next to the mural. I really wanted a picture next to this mural because it's so powerful. So I just want to encourage all of us, women and men alike, Jesus knows your story. He wants to listen to your story. Dare to believe in Jesus. Dare to encounter him every day and receive your healing and your transformation from Jesus. God bless you, church. Thank you.